This is an issue myself and others have been working on here in the legislature since pretty much like 3 days after I first sworn in back in 2023. And in that 2023 budget, this amendment was actually accepted and made it all the way through the legislature. What it would do is implement a pilot program for this biennium, which includes notifying and soliciting community and tribal input before someone is placed in a less restrictive alternative. And then that input would be delivered to the court for their consideration. I think this is something many in my community have asked for, and others across the state, and I think this is a good thing to have in the budget. I'm urging its adoption. This is an important amendment to me. We have a stunning amount of drug-related deaths and other, we have an opioid crisis, we have a fentanyl crisis, and a little bit it's all across the country, but it's hit in Washington state especially hard. We had almost 3,600 drug-related deaths. And sometimes we see the tragic things that are happening on our streets, but sometimes the things that we don't see behind closed doors are just, if not more, tragic. This amendment deals with, you might have heard of it, Maddie's Place in Spokane that serves babies who are born addicted to hard drugs, oftentimes multiple hard drugs, and oftentimes fentanyl as well. I don't know if anyone has ever held a baby in their hands that is suffering through the withdrawals of something like fentanyl, but it's heartbreaking. And we have a stunning rise in child deaths in our state, and personally, I'm not satisfied with what I see might be as a solution to that this session, but I think things like this amendment can be helpful. I know that it's expensive, but it's not coming out of general fund. It's coming out of the opioid settlement account. I'm told that there is enough money when you consider the reversions in that to pay for this multiple times over. And so I think that it's important because places like this that are serving those young babies who are, suffering through withdrawals and substance abuse withdrawals, it's not just the babies that they're trying to help recover. It's oftentimes, especially at Maddie's Place in Spokane, it's also the mothers too, and they have a 95% success rate with helping the mothers out and reconnecting and making sure those families aren't split and that both mom and baby have a second chance at life. I think that if it's anything that our state government can do, it's take care of babies who are born addicted to drugs, and I would urge its adoption. This amendment is about restoring the funding and keeping in place the low security women's prison in my district in North Mason County in Belfair, Mission Creek. This facility is a great facility with great people who work at it, and they provide a safe, secure place for the women who are incarcerated there, and it's a next step towards reentry because of its low security makeup. And what we've seen is, starting with Governor Inslee's budget exercise with state agencies, is a rush to find different cuts within state agencies. And one of those proposed cuts was Mission Creek. It seems like there's a lot of uncertainty for the people in my district who work at Mission Creek, and we're talking about in North Mason County, a place that still, at times, it's still never recovered from the Great Recession. This is a poor end of the county. There is not a lot of jobs there, and Mission Creek is a critical piece to our public safety puzzle, but also it's a critical area where people have decent family wage job employed in the profession of public safety and corrections. Going forward, what it seems like the plan is that and what's called the L wing in Purdy, which is, in another district, would be reopened at the maximum security women's prison in Purdy, for that to be utilized for the current population at Mission Creek. And I have a lot of hesitation because, much like the RHCs, this seems like a rush to find certain cuts and close down longtime institutions that have operated well, like Mission Creek in my community. And so many in my community, in my district in Mason County, have probably sent me hundreds of emails what feels like every day. And I'm struggling because Department of Corrections at the time had never mentioned anything to any of the delegation of the 35th District, and we're the only delegation that serves Mason County. So we feel a little blindsided by this, just like many of the people who work at Mission Creek and in my community. I don't think this is necessarily the right way to rush into finding a cut. I think there's a lot of things in our under this bill, what could be almost a $78 billion budget that we could have found savings in before we closed down Mission Creek and ended the jobs of the Department of Corrections people that work there. It's not a foregone conclusion that they will go to the facility at Purdy. They have to go talk to and find out with the Teamsters Union and other things about what's going to happen there. So there's a lot of uncertainty in my community. I'm sending this amendment for your consideration because I'm standing up for the workers in my district and the Department of Corrections who do a fantastic job. And I would urge you to accept this amendment. I think that this is going way too fast. We should have studied this before just cutting it in a governor's proposed budget who's no longer governor. And I absolutely believe that before this was done, that the department or anybody in the budget maybe could have just taken the time to consult myself and my seatmates, the people that represent these people. I just feel blindsided by this, like many of my constituents do, and I'm urging a yes vote to keep Mission Creek open. Thank you. As it relates to the budget, let's start with some good things. Given that, we face I guess depending on who you ask, anywhere between a $7 and $12 billion deficit this session. Understanding that you can't always get what you want, and some tough decisions did have to be made. And some of the tough decisions that had to be made in this budget are some that I agree with. Of course, there's things like delaying some entitlements and delaying, ECAP and other early learning programs and child care. I know that many people, both sides of the aisle, want to see, improved early learning and child care and transition to kindergarten and so many other different things. So I understand that there was some tough decisions involved, but at the same time, we've increased spending by 8% this biennium. And that kind of indicates to me that the decisions actually weren't that hard. And what I have a problem with this budget is sometimes it confuses me. I think there's a little bit of a lack of vision. Sometimes we're doing things that I vehemently oppose, like robbing single mothers on TANF from child support payments and robbing the age, blind, and deaf of recoveries. The people who our state should take care of that they absolutely need us the most. And not funding our priorities, not getting from 51 to even 50 per capita police, only putting $25 million instead of $100 million that was kind of promised by many earlier in the session. So those are some of the disappointments, and I'm sure we'll have more discussions to come about some of those things. But I think the biggest disappointment of all is that it's been constantly told to me that if we don't raise progressive revenues, then people will die. People will suffer as a result, but then we balance the budget on the backs of the poorest people in our state and then raised a bunch of progressive revenues, but oh, wait a second, we didn't just raise progressive revenues, we raised a property tax, which is a regressive tax. And in order to get funding for police in your community, you had to raise another regressive tax, a sales tax. And these are things that the budget assumes to spend what would be going from a $72 billion to nearly a $78 billion budget. And I ask myself who wins in this session. And it seems like bureaucrats and politicians get paid more. And it seems like people who have committed crimes also win in this budget. But single moms on TANF lose. Age blind and deaf lose. And that's a hard pill for me to swallow, especially facing taxes that I view as purely unconstitutional, like an unrealized capital gains tax, literally taxing people on profits they haven't even gained yet. A property tax on assets that's unconstitutional because we have a uniformity clause in our Constitution, and that's not a uniform tax. A 50% increase to the B&O tax for our largest employers. I'm concerned that they're going to pack their bags and leave, and with it, all the family wage jobs they provide in our state, and the great benefits in healthcare and dental and vision, maybe even dental therapy, who knows. But at the end of the day, nothing is more devastating than this property tax. This is a tax on people on fixed incomes who have, who have retired, and this is what they've budgeted for. And at the same time, we have pensioners who were once school teachers who were in their 80s. We did nothing for them in this budget, not even a one-time bump. And that's a disappointment to me. When I think of an elderly 80-year-old teacher in TERS 1 who isn't getting an adjustment for their cost of living increase, and now they face in this budget a property tax increase that will far outweigh the COLA they would have got from us anyway. And then we add that on top of, a host of other things, including what I view as reckless spending. And I think that a lot of things in this budget were rushed. We talked about the RHCs. I'm very concerned that people will die as a result of that. I'm very concerned about closing down our prisons. We're rushing into some of these cuts without really measuring twice and cutting once and really thinking it through. And I know that we only have 105 days to do it. But some of these things, I think, had my side of the aisle, had my party been in the room, we might not have gotten the budget that we wanted. But at least we could have been there to give advice about our districts of 3 million people that we represent in our communities across the state of Washington. I think that when you couple things like this property tax with things like rent control, it's going to be devastating for housing supply we may never recover. And there's a lot of policies and taxes that this budget bill assumes, and it does so, and it creates another 8% increase to taxes. And then in the second biennium, even more it assumes. But we didn't learn any of the lessons that got us here in the first place. We're literally continuing the same things that got us here. And I am going to make a prediction to you that if we pass a budget like this, we will be back here again having these same tough decisions again in no time. And that's something that the people of the state of Washington do not want. As polled recently multiple times, 2/3 of Washingtonians want no new taxes. They want to curb the reckless spending. They want government efficiency. They want Washington state to live within its means. And they want the extreme cost of living in this state to go down. We are one of the most unaffordable states in the entire country for gas, groceries, rent, housing, insurance. And even with the PEB and SEB cap, their private payers insurance could go up $1,400 a year. And what? So public sector employees like us can get better health care outcomes? Once again, who is winning here? I don't know if a lot of people are going to feel good about this. I know some people, even you, Mr. Chair, maybe don't feel good about everything about this, and I understand that. But I feel like had we been together in this, I might not have gotten a budget I could vote for. I might not have gotten a budget I liked. But I think that some better decisions could have been made, and we're better when we work together. And so I'm going to urge a no vote today.